Hello and welcome to our podcast on various pedagogical issues. Today's topic is the defiant toddler who is experiencing autonomy for the first time. Some people might also refer to this stage of life as the terrible twos, the defiant phase, or the autonomy phase. No matter what we call it, it is the same phenomenon that we mean. These different terms I mentioned already tell a lot about this phenomenon. This phase in life is about gaining autonomy and being defiant towards parents who always decide on things children don't necessarily like. The expression, the terrible twos, sounds more negative and puts a focus on this phase from the parent's point of view. Which word we choose for this phase depends on the perspective we adopt. What does autonomy actually mean? Autonomy means the longing for independence and taking responsibility for one's own actions. How autonomous can a child in this stage of life be? What are its abilities? I'd like to start with the development steps in the brain during years 1 to 3. In this time, children discover that there's another world in the outside of ourselves. They find out that there are other worlds than the I. Toddlers are egocentric, but start recognizing in this phase, oh, there are also other people apart from me. Kids gain the knowledge that parents have different aims, feelings, and desires than they have themselves. But children have a hard time taking on another perspective at this age in this phase. Only at the age of about 4, children start understanding other perspectives. I'd like to give you an example for this. Max would like to have some yogurt, and his mother wants to fulfill his wish. She opens the yogurt, sticks in a spoon, and hands him the yogurt. But Max becomes angry, starts crying and flailing wildly, and by that even throws away the yogurt he wanted to have. Why? Max would have liked to open the yogurt himself and also to stick the spoon in there himself. But how should his mother have known that? And how is the mother going to get her son out of this situation and his emotions linked to it? This is really difficult for parents. One possibility would be to use a certain breathing technique. Breathing in while counting to 4, pausing while counting to 6, and breathing out again while counting to 8. By that, you're able to take the pressure out of the situation. Remember, there's always a need behind an action. Children react without thinking about other perspectives because they are not able to do so at such a young age. This means Max cannot understand that his mother only wanted to help him by opening the yogurt and sticking the spoon into it. Max only knows what he wanted to do and that he couldn't do so because of his mother. How can parents stay calm in such a situation? It's essential to meet the kid at eye level to show empathy. Talk calmly, choose simple words, sit down, and try to understand your child's needs. Which language can be used in such a situation? A possibility is to revise how the child might feel. Say something like, okay, Max, you're angry, and I understand that you're angry. I can understand your anger. You're also disappointed because you wanted to open the yogurt yourself. Try to find out what's the problem. Many times we recognize easily what triggered the action. Then it's important to find compromises. But be careful not to overstrain your child with words. Words don't work in such a situation. You may ask yourself why they don't work. It's because the brain, in its function as the language center, is overwhelmed with strong emotions. Therefore, it's vital not to only say, but also show with gestures and facial expressions, I'm here, I understand you, and your feelings too. And to verbalize emotions. Whenever parents express the needs of their children and of themselves, their children will also gain competences in the naming of their emotions. Let's get to the topic of attitude now. I'd like to talk about some considerations that have a positive impact on the upbringing of children. Firstly, take children seriously. Try to detect what happened and relate to the situation, as in the example of Max and his yogurt. For this, it's essential to accept, to endure, and to experience emotions. If we as parents show our children that this is important, they will also get used to it. Many adults repress their feelings and pass on this habit to their kids. The next consideration is that young children's neuronal interconnections have not matured at this point in time. Therefore, the language center might be blocked, which makes it impossible to verbalize ideas or thoughts. Just as a baby is not able to walk immediately, speaking and reflecting about situations and feelings also takes some time. The third consideration I'd like to share with you concerns the topic of apologies. Most parents request their kids to apologize for difficult situations. But due to the complexity of feelings and situations, many children don't really manage to do so. By forcing such apologies, we exemplify that apologies are nothing but empty words. Hopefully, this sounds logical to you. Still, there is the question of how to deal as a parent in a situation in which your kid might have hurt another kid at the playground. You can apologize to the kid. This way, your child learns how to behave in situations of conflict simply by observing and imitating you. As soon as your child begins to apologize itself without being forced to do so, it's a serious apology and not a phrase without meaning. Another advantage is to understand that children still lack a certain amount of impulse control. For instance, if your child feels the need to have the chocolate bar at the supermarket, it wants it in exactly this moment. It throws itself to the ground because it wants to have it now, immediately. Children act out of an inner impulse. It's only at the age of about 6 years that children master impulse control. This means we should think about what we can do as parents, as grandparents, in our function as a role model to overcome this defiant phase. My answer is to reflect on our own behavioral patterns and doctrines and whether they are fitting for the family. It is vital here to also involve our feelings and emotions. We as children were often not taught to perceive our emotions and to go through them. Many of us were taught to simply push away our emotions. This is also a reason why we are triggered by situations in which emotions do break through. We always want to protect children, but very often they actually don't need our protections. What is important for parents, but often forgotten and neglected, is networking. By networking, I mean looking for help and also accepting help. Finding the right path becomes easier when talking about problems and when exchanging with others. Of equal importance is it to listen to our intuition and our gut feeling. Let's come back again to the situation in the supermarket. What is actually stopping us in such situations to go through all the emotions coming up, to accept them and to simply wait for them to be over? Well, it's shame that makes such situations uncomfortable. But I can guarantee you, 90% of the adults standing around you are thinking, thank goodness this is not my child and it's not me who is in this situation right now. The people standing around you know these situations and they are feeling with you. Think about that the next time you are in such a situation. I know that this is mental and emotional pressure, but try to give your best to go through this. Breathe calmly, be compassionate and empathetic, but also consistent and decisive. You can be sure that for every conflict situation you are avoiding, 2 more of them will follow. Finally, I'd like to share one last thought with you. Your kid going through this defiant phase is just right. This phase is very significant for the development of your child. It needs this phase to recognize limits and consequences, to experience their own behavior in order to apply it later on while growing up and becoming an adult. Thank you for listening. I wish you all the best, and I'm happy if you tune in for the next episode. Bye.